Welcome to Murphy's Medicine, Weekend Extra. Hosted by Dr. Stephen A.R. Murphy. We'll talk men's health, longevity, mental focus, and the importance of being a good dad. Now, let the conversation begin. Here's your host, Dr. Murphy.
What is up, my tribe? Happy weekend! It's the Weekend Extra. That's right. It's Dr. Murphy here with the Weekend Extra. Today's date is March 10th, 2023. That's right, March 10th, 2023. And we are here today to give you your dose. That's right, your dose of Murphy's medicine. Because when Murphy's Law strikes, there's only one treatment and one treatment alone, and that is Murphy's medicine. So thanks for sticking in today for your dose. Promise it's going to be a good one. So today I really want to talk about a couple of different things, right? So we have, first off, I talked last week about circumstances rousing anger. Circumstances can also rouse fear, right? They can rouse all sorts of issues. And I'll tell you right now that you're going to lose control. You're going to lose a little bit of control. I can tell you during the pandemic, in the very beginning, I had fear. I had real fear. As the pandemic went on and on, I still had fear, but it was less. I could control it. I could make it appropriate fear of different things. You know, because in the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things that happened to me was we didn't know whether it was airborne or whether it was contact or whatever it was. And we were scared. Why were we scared? Well, you know, we had a lot of media reporting things. We had a lot of health organizations and quote unquote trusted institutions that also were saying a lot of things. And we assumed they had information that we didn't have. We assumed that they had information that we didn't have. And so we were concerned about it. And last week I talked about negativity bias. There was a lot of negative information coming out. But we had to keep our heads. We had to try and keep from losing control. Try and keep from losing control. And so this weekend, March 10th, 2023, guess what? We've got a lot of control loss. Let me tell you about the control loss, right? So we can no longer understand exactly what's going on in our communities with COVID. Why? Because we're losing our ability to track our testing. Our testing apparatus is being dismantled. We talked about that with Alex Meshkin in one of the other podcasts back in February. Take a listen to it. It was very good. Lots of curse words that I had to beep out. But I'll tell you this. As we began to grow through the pandemic, we began to realize that if we just stayed healthy, exercised, tried to ventilate our houses, stay outdoors, eat a healthier diet, lose some weight, get more sun, that we could probably get through this. Don't get me wrong. There's a whole percentage of people that are suffering post-infection issues, otherwise known as long COVID. And that's scary. That's scary. I can tell you. I myself experience post-infection complications, including a stroke. That's right. I had a stroke. And I think one of those things that stares you down in your face about that is that you recognize your mortality. You realize, oh my God, I could be in a wheelchair. I could not have my mind. And one of those big things as a doctor is, especially... And I don't want to slander orthopedic surgeons or neurosurgeons, right? Or neurologists, right? It's the old saw where they say the neurologist knows everything and can do nothing, and the neurosurgeon knows nothing and does everything, right? There you go. Take that, Paul Apostolides. Actually, one of my best friends of all time. So, but in all seriousness, we have to keep control. We have to keep control. So I want to start today with a little quote by Epictetus. It's not a little quote, it's actually a big one. So you ready? The soul is like a bowl of water, and our impressions are like the ray of light falling upon the water. When the water is troubled, it appears that the light itself is moved too, but it isn't. So, when a person loses their composure, it isn't their skills and virtues that are troubled, but the spirit in which things exist. And when that spirit calms down, so do those things. Okay, so think about that a little bit. I'm gonna unpack it for you. I want to unpack it for you. The soul is like a bowl of water, right? So I'm going to get a little metaphysical on you. Right? I'm going to get a little metaphysical on you, right? So energy can either be created or destroyed, right? Our fancy physicists tell us that. That's really the theory. Tough to call things law, right? And it's tough to call things theory, but energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So you have inside of yourself energy, right? We know that we can measure it. We can measure it in brain waves, right? Through electrical assessment. We can measure it through electrocardiograms of your heart and that electrical activity. So we know that there is an energy there. Is that magically being created or destroyed, right? No, right? Our body is taking in components that allow us to produce energy, right? It's from one form of energy to another. And so there's a lot of debate about what kind of energy is in this lifeless lump of carbon that we have. And so without a soul, without energy, without electrical impulses, without a brain, we are just a lump of carbon, just like soil. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And so our soul is that which the energy we imbue in our body, whether you are a believer in the Creator, the Lord, the monotheist, or the polytheist, or the monotheist, and instead believe in the universal that has evolved, like Buddhism, that energy just is. Regardless of whatever that is, you have to admit to yourself that you do have an energy force inside of you. And that soul is like a bowl of water. And our impressions, right? What's our impressions? Positives or negatives? We talked about negativity bias last week, right? Our impressions are like the ray of light falling upon the water. Okay? Whether it's good or whether it's bad. When the water is troubled, when our soul is troubled, when our energy is troubled, what does that mean? Well, you know inside what that means. When you are troubled, right? You turn to Jesus, you turn to meditation, you turn to your rabbi, you turn to your priest, you turn to your imam, you turn to your spiritual guru, whatever you do to calm your soul. Well, one of the great things that we have is a set of guiding principles throughout lots of different societies. And one of those set of philosophies of mankind was called Stoicism. Stoicism is very useful, and I implore you to learn a little bit about it because it is not religious. It is philosophy. It is philosophy that you can apply to your life, whatever your religion is, to calm your soul. And in this case, Epictetus is crystal clear. So when a person loses their composure, it isn't their skills and virtues that are troubled. Your ability to compose yourself is not troubled. It's not ruined. You as a person are not troubled. But the spirit in which these things exist, and when that spirit calms down, so do those things. With H5N1 starting to rip through here, that's the avian flu that we're starting to see, and there's subtle hints of evidence of human-to-human spread, which we have to take with serious concern. Very similar to like I did with COVID at first, COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2. H5N1 is a bad mamma jamma, and from what little evidence we have of it, it's you don't want it. So that could trouble your soul. That could easily trouble your soul or trouble my soul. And don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Let a calmness pervade your soul, and do not view things in a negative bias. Just work on yourself and recognize to be calm. It is neither negative nor positive. It is an occurrence. And you have to say to yourself, I have no control over that occurrence. I have no control over H5N1. I have no control over mutations in SARS-CoV-2. I have no control in anything other than myself. So what's the problem, right? I mean, let's think about it in the end, right? So you messed up. You lost control, right? You got anger, you got way too much fear, or you acted in fear, that doesn't change who you are. That doesn't change the person you are. That doesn't change your belief system, and it doesn't change your philosophy. And so if you are a follower of Stoicism, you're going to go back to it. Go back to the principles. Go back to the principles. Go back to the reading. And in this case, work on yourself. Your mess up was an opportunity to get better, to recognize that you weren't living by your principles, right? What are those principles? Courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice are the true principles. And you have to anchor those into your soul, because the soul is like a bowl of water, and our impressions are like the rays of light that fall upon that water. Keep your soul still, my fam. Keep your soul still. That is my advice for you. And I want you to work on yourself. And I'm going to use cognitive bias today. You ready for this important little mind hack, right? Well, there's this thing called the IKEA effect, where we place a higher value on things that we've created ourselves, right? Or even that we've partially created ourselves, regardless of the quality. So work on yourself, because then you'll place a higher value on yourself, regardless of the quality. And let that be a virtuous cycle for you this weekend. Work on yourself. Work on yourself. And remember, try to keep your soul still. Be brave. We've got a lot of stuff going out there. We're going to have a pandemic again. We're going to have a stock market crash again. We're going to have a global thermonuclear war. I can't say again because I don't think we've ever had one of those before. But what can you do about it? Keep your soul still. Protect your family. This month, we're going to have some really great stuff to teach you how to cope and how not to cope with the things that can jiggle that bowl of water and turn it into a bowl of jelly. Okay? So let's not do that. Let's keep a tranquil mind as we approach the weekend. And remember, things just are. That's right. Things just are. It's the way it is. All right. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. I thank you for tuning in. If this helped, please share this with others. Share this with others who think it might help. Children, family, friends, coworkers, whoever it is. Share it. And if you have some comments, please drop us a line. Send us an email. We want to hear from you, our tribe. That's right. So it's Dr. Murphy tuning out on the 10th of March, 2023. Stay safe, guys. Be good to each other. Do your best. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Murphy's Medicine with Dr. Stephen A.R. Murphy. Got a question for the doctor? Email us at doc@murphysmedicine.com. And for more information on this podcast, visit our website at murphysmedicine.com. Be sure to follow us on all social media at Murphy's Medicine. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us. And tell your friends they too can start planning for Murphy's Law by listening to Murphy's Medicine. Thanks again for listening.
We can all do something, right?
Yeah, and if we had more and more Murphys out there, the world would be a better place.